Hey, you have Patrick Findaro here, co-founder at Vetted Biz. Very excited to have on Ron Holt, who has founded two franchise concepts, both in the home service sector. We're going to hear a bit about his journey and how he grew one franchise brand to an eventual exit. And now he's on to his second brand in the moving space. So we're going to hear about what piqued his interest in the moving space and how his second brand, Pink Zebra Moving, is growing. Let's hear first from Ron about his story post-college and his first job and how he got into entrepreneurship.
Yeah, so thank you, Patrick, for having me here. It's an honor. I can't wait to tell my story. It's an interesting story because I'm a boy from southern Georgia, which is in the middle of nowhere, and boys from southern Georgia don't open home service businesses, but I did. It's been a dream of mine. Really, right after college, like you said, I was working inside a laboratory. I was a chemist and working there, making money like everybody does right out of college, and assumed I would just sort of climb that ladder day after day, year after year. And at some point along the way, I recognized that I wasn't real happy. And I wondered, is that normal or should I seek happiness? And part of me said it's normal because you just work, right? That's what everybody does, and you just
Yeah.
keep working. But I was selfish, I guess, and thought there could be a better side to life. And wanted to find happiness. And to me, building a business literally from the ground up and building a brand across the nation that could scale was a dream. You know, honestly a ridiculous dream at the time that I never thought was possible. But I set out towards that path, and it was a heck of a journey. It was a 19-year journey from the first day we opened in 2003, Two Maids A Mop, to when I exited last year in September of 2021. So home services is probably very boring to most people. It doesn't seem like this, Wall Street doesn't notice it. Silicon Valley doesn't notice it, but boys from South Georgia do, apparently. So it was an exciting time for me at Two Maids A Mop, and even more exciting time now here at Pink Zebra Moving.
At Two Maids and a Mop, at what point did you decide on franchising? I imagine you had a corporate location that was doing well. Why expand through franchising?
Exactly. So I never really thought we would franchise at Two Maids. It was not something on my radar because I had met other franchisees of other cleaning service brands across the country that were very successful, and they weren't real happy with their franchisor. It was almost this combative relationship. So I was scared to death because I thought growth meant good, and with these brands, the franchisees were not happy, and so growth didn't seem very good to those folks. So I stayed away from it until a few things happened with our corporate growth. We opened our first store down in Pensacola, Florida. Things were really great. We just took off, and shortly after that, opened store number 2, it's 3, and eventually had 12 corporate stores across the Southeast. Opened, yeah, and things were going really well. But we had sort of outstripped our control, our oversight, because we had these 12 stores, which were all doing very well, but we had 12 employees managing the businesses. And so we felt somewhat limiting our growth because we weren't having that ownership mentality that everybody wants when you obviously own a business. And so that was one big issue. The other big issue is we didn't really feel that we could provide the support we needed to our corporate stores at the level we were providing it by continuing to grow without building a bigger home office. And so I didn't really want this massive corporate bureaucracy, And so most importantly, I just wanted like-minded people operating the Two Maids A Mop locations across the country. And the easiest way to do that, I thought, was to have owners, franchisees. And so along the way, I was fortunate to meet Fred DeLuca, who was the founder of Subway. He passed a few years ago, but Fred and I got to know one another. And Fred taught me a lot about what he learned as a franchisor of a obviously pretty successful brand. And he taught me that there's ways to, yeah. At the time when we met, he had 42,000 locations, and so I was a little bit away from the 12 we had. But he taught me that you can be a successful franchisor and make your franchisees happy while they're making money, and have this really symbiotic relationship. And I fell in love with the idea of it, and that's really what convinced me to sort of take a pivot and transition from corporate growth of these Two Maids A Mop locations to the franchise
How many
network
years
that
did it
we built
take
later
from
on.
that first corporate store in Pensacola, Florida, to building up to
Well,
12 and then having franchisees?
way too long. It took 10 years. And
Okay.
so we had 10 years. The first 2 years in Pensacola, we literally lost money every day. It was, the epitome of a small business that didn't know what they were doing. I didn't know anything about cleaning. I didn't know a whole lot about Pensacola because I had just moved there from Georgia.
Did
I
you
didn't
have
know
kids? Did
how
you
to
have a
really
family
manage.
at the time and kids to support, or this is pre?
No, nobody wanted anything to do with me. So
Okay.
no, I was losing money and working a lot. So I
Okay.
wasn't I wasn't the best candidate. But I believed I had a huge vision, and just believed that big things could come from all the hard work and sacrifice that I was investing towards the business, and uh, that's what kept me going. Even though we were losing money hand over fist, the vision, the dream that I had for what was going to come later was so strong, and I believed it. So strongly that I just wasn't going to let anything get in my way. And, it's the entrepreneurial mindset that everybody has when they really build something from the ground up. And I never learned that mindset. No one ever really taught me. I hadn't really even seen it with family members or anything. But for some reason, it was inside of me. And even though I was out cleaning dirty floors and nasty toilets and going through, years where we had 600% turnover, all losing money, like I said, hand over fist, no matter what negative thing happened, the vision I had for what was to come later was so strong that I just wasn't going to stop. I was going to win no matter what. So
What
that's why I
was
love
that?
business.
What
That's why
was
I
that
love business so
vision?
much. So I wanted to do two things. I wanted to disrupt the residential cleaning industry. I felt like it was a broken industry that was comprised of a lot of fragmented mom and pops. And so I felt like I could come in and do something different. Whatever that was, I would find out later what it was. But I felt like I could do something right that was being done wrong. And second, I really just wanted to scale a brand from the ground up across the country. Like it was maybe a headache to some when people hear that, but for me, this like awesome just fantasy that I wanted to live. So those were the two dreams I chased on a daily basis. And every time I hired a literal housekeeper, I would tell them all these crazy dreams. And today it's obviously it became a reality. I was able to tell the story, and it's not just a fantasy. But when you tell that to someone in a 200 square foot office space where they see you the day before cleaning someone's dirty toilet, then it's a hard story to sell.
And that's what I listen to another podcast. It's like think big, but you also have to think small or kind of in the details.
No doubt about it, because the thinking big is what gets you through the small. Like if you don't really believe in where you're going, if you don't know where you're going, then all the day-to-day minutia that you have to deal with is just work. At that point, it's not progress. And so for me, even though we were cleaning the dirty toilets, that dirty toilet represented something. I learned how to clean the toilet, number one. I learned the experience an employee will go through while they're dealing with a
Yeah.
customer, while they're also cleaning their dirty toilets. I learned what it costs to do it. I learned how to market to customers. All these things I had to learn hands on. All of it was progress. It wasn't work.
Yeah.
And so it was a job, I guess, technically, but it didn't feel that way. It felt like every day was this stepping stone towards something bigger. The baby steps is probably the best way to describe it, because when you think I'm going to take a concept that's just in my 2 years, between my 2 years, to a nationwide brand that's going to disrupt this industry, an entire industry, the dream is so big that it can be somewhat intimidating. And so the best way to take that intimidation away is to create little small baby steps that you can achieve. And for me, the first step was just figuring out how to make money cleaning homes in Pensacola, Florida.
Yeah.
And then step 2, 3, and 4 would come later. So.
How did it transpire to what you're doing now, growing a moving franchise brand from the ground up again? And how did you make that
I don't know if you
transition
can.
happen?
There's a dude behind me. His name is Warren Buffett. That's my hero. And so Warren Buffett is the CEO of a company called Berkshire Hathaway. Berkshire Hathaway is comprised of all these various businesses from really all over the world, from Dairy Queen to Hanes, to Geico, just random businesses. And so I love a lot about what Warren Buffett does, but the randomness is not something I love. So I wanted to build my own little mini version of Berkshire Hathaway, but I wanted to restrict it and contain it to just the home service franchise space. And so as Two Maids A Mop was growing, and as my day-to-day investment in the business was waning, because as the business grew, I didn't need to be as present as I was, as obviously during those early startup days. I started to think about other industries that we could attack. What other home service industry was broken?
Because it's the same
And
customer.
I could really,
you know the customer in and
same
out. Like you were
customer,
cleaning the
absolutely.
dirty toilets. You have their intimate information.
Oftentimes it wasn't literally like the same customer demographic. It was the same customer. You like move someone, you could, and then clean them as well. So it was a pretty cool symbiotic relationship there. But that what I saw about moving, and I still love to this day, was it has a lot of similar characteristics as residential cleaning did 19 years ago. It's very fragmented. Even though there's some big brands out there that people are aware of their names, they're, one, sold out, and two, they're not really doing anything different. How they operate today is how they operated 15 years ago. But for the most part,
it seems like on the brand
market
side, the franchise brand side, there's like junk removal, mix of moving. They're usually doing like a lot of different services, not just
absolutely
moving.
Yeah, and they're good people. We know all of them. But what we have seen in literally every market across this country is that large majority of the moving services that are available to the public, especially when it comes to local moving like we focus on, it's just a guy with a U-Haul truck, just someone who's rented a truck and said, hey, I'm a moving company. Let's do this.
I can relate to that. The last time we moved apartments, they didn't show up. And it's like we had reserved the elevators for multiple apartments, insurance, and like there was no accountability because it was just that guy.
There are so many awful war stories out there from really bad moving experiences. And this is actually what I had a personal interaction with a moving company myself. It wasn't great. And I said, well, I'm just going to chalk that up to bad luck. My mother-in-law later on had an equally worse, or actually probably even worse experience than I did. And I said, my gosh, this can't just be two people. It's got to be a lot of people. And so I did what a lot of people do when they're looking for a local service. I just started searching Google reviews, the Yelp reviews from across the country, and they all said the same thing over and over again.
What was that?
Like just all these really negative war stories. And that's when the light bulb hit me that there's an opportunity here. And I'd never moved before. I'd paid people to move, but I'd never moved before. So I didn't really understand the trade or the industry.
I did it
but
once.
I knew
I wouldn't recommend it unless you're like going into this industry and you really need to understand the trade.
Yeah. But from a consumer perspective, I felt like the consumers, who wants to pay thousands of dollars to be unhappy? Like, it's crazy, right? But in this industry that we're in, moving, that happens every single day to somebody.
It's kind of the expectation.
Right. Like you call 5 people that are moving and say, are you looking forward to it? No one is, And so I have always been like idealist, like thinking that amazing things could happen. And we proved that at Two Maids A Mop. We're hopefully going to prove it here at Pink Zebra. So my vision here is to not just disrupt this industry, but change it. Like, I want to create a whole new category. We call ourselves the world's first happy moving company. And so that's what we're hoping to do, is to create these positive, unique, remarkable customer experiences that people rave about, and that's not something you think about usually when you think about moving. But when it comes to Pink Zebra moving, we want people to attach that emotion, happy, to us. We want people to look forward to hiring us. And we plan to put on a show.
Companies that have done it in other sectors like CarMax, where they really changed how people buy used cars, and they got rid of like the commission structure, and the client experience is a lot better, and the company's done really well.
Yeah, I get super excited and passionate when I talk about the customer experience part of what we're doing, because that's why we exist. Like our tagline is, we make moving fun. Like, whoever thought moving could be fun? We do. And we've done that. I've got I talked about those war stories with customers for other moving companies. While we're not perfect by any stretch, we have so many opposite stories of that. Like these stories where people have cried after hiring us, and people who have written these crazy reviews. We even had people take selfies. We have a mascot at every move, and they take selfies with us. We've got these crazy looking trucks that, people.
Yeah. I mean, I saw the trucks when we first connected. I was Googling around like, wow, dude, I would definitely recognize this. I remembered it for a while. And if I saw that on the road, we gotta come down get a franchisee in South Florida. We could definitely use those pink zebra moving
Look,
services.
we're wide open right now. That's so great about being a part of another startup brand. You know, when you build a brand from the ground up, there's so much excitement early on, and your hands are in everything, and everything means something. Every minute you put towards that day, that work day means something, and you have a return on your investment. But as the business grows, the entrepreneurial part of what you do on a daily basis sort of dies because you're now a CEO, you're in boardrooms and you're in Zoom meetings and all these, bureaucratic type things are happening, and you lose all that entrepreneurial, just stuff you love, and so Pink Zebra Moving gave me that outlet to start being the entrepreneur again instead of the CEO. And so, we get to have fun here every day now. Not that we weren't having fun at Two Maids A Mop. It was fun. It was obviously fun to see a fantasy come to life. But all the things that we learned from that experience, we're able to not just use here, but also learn from. We made a few mistakes at Two Maids A Mop. And so some of those mistakes were hard to overcome. But here at Pink Zebra Moving, not only can we overcome them, we don't have to make them again, because we've already been through it one time.
Ron, could you tell me a little bit about like the economics, how much it costs to get started with a Pink Zebra, and anything else you can share in terms of like how a franchisee makes money?
Absolutely. So for a single territory, the initial investment is somewhere between 130 to 190. We offer opportunities where there are multiple territories. The investment can be slightly higher just because there's more land, obviously, to serve, but somewhere between 130 to 190. We have a 7% royalty. We have a 1% ad fund fee. One of the great things about this industry is the expectation is for our franchisees to ramp fairly quickly. There is some seasonality to the moving industry, but at the same time, there's so much demand in this industry that we've seen a much quicker ramp than what we experienced at Two Maids and a Mop. So we're pretty excited about those things. It's an affordable investment in a high demand industry that we're hoping to change altogether.
And I mean, I imagine like COVID's killed some businesses, but for moving, I mean, you have people like so many people came even from California to South Florida and just all over the United States. Like people are moving to smaller, mid-sized cities. I mean,
so when I started Two Maids and a Mop, one of the reasons for that was I wanted to be in an industry that a robot wouldn't kill. Yeah. I saw all these other industries where like retail was struggling because of all these other things, Amazon, Walmart, whatever. And so I didn't want to be in an industry that would one day die. And I felt like in cleaning that it'd be hard to get the robot to do some of the work that we were doing. And that proved to be the case because we lived through obviously a pandemic that no one ever saw coming. And moving is the same. And for home services in general, there's obviously technological improvements and there's evolution to everything, but we have not seen a lot of change. How you moved 15 years ago is almost kind of how you move today.
And the cadence isn't going to go down where like I have a robot vacuum, like maybe I need a housekeeper every 2 weeks now instead of every week because I run the robot vacuum, and now that business has half the revenue just because the consumer's changed and has adopted to the technology advantages.
Yeah, you still need trucks. You need guys to load the trucks and unload the trucks, and no matter how advanced this society becomes, it's hard to see a lot of that changing. There's obviously ways to improve it and make it more efficient, but the truck and the guys are essential. So.
And how do you kind of like, do you divide and conquer with the franchisor? Imagine like you're handling the branding. Do you also handle the marketing, the lead generation? How is like the structure between the franchisor and the franchisee divided?
That's a great question. So I've always felt like as a franchisor, again, looking back to those early days where I met Fred DeLuca from Subway, we need to have a symbiotic relationship. If there's ever a day where the franchisee thinks they're paying the royalty for nothing, then that's a problem, And so we want to do our job to make sure that the franchisee says, I couldn't do it without them. And so we work real hard to connect them with valuable vendors that can help make their life easier and more efficient and do it in an affordable way. And then we do a lot of things on our end so that they can just focus on the day-to-day operations of their business. Like we don't want people to have to figure out how to do SEO. We don't want people to have to figure out, these creative things that we're envisioning and we're dreaming up here about customer experience. We don't want our franchisees to have to be the next Walt Disney,
Yeah.
So we want to do as much as we can for the franchisee, minus hire their employees and train their employees and manage those employees. So if we can give our franchisees total time to just focus on employee management and customer service and experience, then we'll do everything else basically. So we connect all of our franchisees with a marketing agency that's focused on the moving industry that we know well and have worked with and established a great relationship with. On the customer experience side, we make that all very simple and easy. We have, of course, a CRM that helps chase leads and also convert leads, but also communicate and engage with clients. In this industry, you don't want moving to be a transaction. That's what happens oftentimes with home services, which has always been this crazy thing to me. When you think about home services, whether it's moving or cleaning or plumbing or whatever, someone's inside your home or at least around your home, a person, a human being. It's not like, going to Subway and buying a sandwich where you can totally forget who served you. But a plumber, you're going to know. A mover, you're going to know. But in the home services industry, typically it's a transaction. It's a straight up commodity for most consumers. And it's been the craziest conundrum to me because it should be the most relationship based industry there is, And so you're in their home, touching their stuff. You're in a home for an entire day, if not more than a day in some cases. So we believe that Peak Zebra Moving, that our job is to build a relationship with the customer all the way from the time they book to after the move is even complete. So we work hard to engage with them. We create, again, relationships with them. We're trying to build trust and loyalty, honestly. And we want the people that hire us to know who we are after it's all said and done. If we're just guys with a truck, we're a transaction, we're a commodity, and it's really easy to be mad at people like that. But people and like, it's harder to be mad at those folks.
Yeah,
and so
there's a reason why doctors that really get to know their patients are sued at a far lesser rate.
Right. There you go. Yeah.
And then
so in the moving industry, that's just not been the case. Even you just talked about your negative experience. Obviously, they didn't show up, but if I had to guess, you forgot their name. You don't have to mention it here.
No,
you didn't know the names of the movers.
And I won't refer. And that's what I was going to ask you about. Like, I imagine, SEO is great. Google ads are great, but after a while, you have a moving business for 5 years. Ideally, you're not spending much money on marketing, and you're just bearing the fruits of the customers that you helped out.
Well, let me tell you, this is one of the things that we do. So customer experience, I know I say those words all the time, but that's what we're known for. And so we do it because we want to engage and create relationships with our customers, but we also have an ulterior motive. We also want to create reasons for people to refer us. And so one of the things that we do the day before a move is we provide a free surprise dinner. I've told this on other podcasts. Every moving company in the country, listen to me and do it. It's fine if you copy it. Because we do a million other things besides this. But we provide free meals the night before a move, and we surprise. We don't put it on our website. We don't talk about it during the sales pitch. We surprise the people the day before, and it's a great meal, And so it shows up on their doorstep.
What's the meal? Do you choose the restaurant, or do they get a credit on Uber Eats or something?
We give them an option. There's 2 or 3 options in every market. Yeah, but it's simple things like pizza. It's not sushi or anything. But
the return on
still food.
That return on that investment must be high, like $50. And
absolutely,
you're gonna get like a couple of
referrals. Yeah, and so we get started off in a really strong manner. The next day goes way better because, again, the night before we fed you and you didn't see it coming. And so when we walk in, they're happy. People are happy for that we're arriving. And when we make mistakes, because we do, we're people, the mistakes are not nearly as significant as without having that relationship that we created the night before. So that's one of the things that we do, and people talk about it. After it's all said and done, when people say, well, how did the service go? Instead of talking about how we picked up their piano or how we unloaded their couch, they talk about the $50 meal the night before. So it's the little things like that a lot of people just take for granted that we think help us, again, create that relationship with our customers.
Well, talk about getting started on the right foot. No one does that kind of I haven't heard of another franchise that does that kind of pre-client experience. It's huge.
Yeah, we love it. I'm telling you. copy and paste it, whoever's out there. The hard part is doing more than that. We do a lot more than that too, but that's one of the trademarks of our service offering.
And Ron, we're concluding the interview. I mean, for someone that's looking to get in the home service space, they see the value of the franchise. Maybe they're looking at your brand or another brand, and they see that the franchisor is earning their keeps and providing the royalties. So they see the concept makes sense. Any advice for that first-time entrepreneur that's getting into a franchise in the home service space?
Yeah. So one, like any franchise, you need a strong bottom line. That's the thing that we worked so hard on. We had fun doing all the free dinner stuff and learning the industry and just having fun just building a business. But at the end of the day, we knew we weren't ready to franchise this concept until the bottom line proved itself. And so that's first and foremost. Make sure you're not just chasing your passion. Make sure you're chasing the dollars, So
Yes.
Second, you need, I talked about vendors briefly. Vendors are critical to every franchise brand. And if you don't have strong vendors that can help you, sometimes the vendor is the franchisor, and oftentimes it's someone they're connected with. Our vendors go back, in some cases, almost 20 years, even because some of the old Two Maids vendors kind of transferred to us and are with us. And so I would make sure that if you're considered a franchise brand in this space, that make sure that the vendor relationships are strong so that whenever you open the business, you're not having to figure out insurance. You're not having to figure out how to market. You're not
Marketing services would be the guinea pig with an agency
like in our
that's
case,
never done moving.
Yeah, trucks are a huge part of our business, obviously. And so if we didn't have strong vendors that could allow our franchisee to go find these trucks and just have, if you want a truck next week, we can get you a truck next week. That's not something we could do when we first started this business. It was all Greek to us, and so we had to learn it. But those are the main things. I mean, obviously you want to deal with the right people and you want to make sure you're getting the right training and support and all the things every franchise brand talks about. But vendor relationships and a bottom line, those are the two things I think are the most important.
Yeah. I mean, you're really the first franchisor or even franchisee that's really brought that point up. And I think it makes so much sense. And people call it vendor, supplier, support. But at the end of the day, if it's the franchisor doing it, great. But if it's not, then they're vetted someone that's providing that service and you can rely on them and you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And that's a big reason why people want to go the franchise path and not open up an independent business.
Yep. I agree. We've seen a lot of franchisees over the years that have been very successful, but it would be very difficult, in my opinion, for them to be successful without the benefit of the franchise system. And so, but when you combine that, when you marry the franchise training and support with your entrepreneurial mindset, it's a home run.
Yeah.
And so that's
just
the people we're looking for.
Put their head down and focus on serving the customer and hiring and managing. And it seems like you guys handle the rest. And
that's what we want to do. That's what we've done at Two Maids and what we're going to do here at Pink Zebra Moving.
Well, Ron, it was a pleasure having you on. I'll be sure to include a link to your franchise website. So those that might be interested in entering the moving space can get in contact with you and explore the opportunity. It looks like territory is pretty open. So definitely sync with Ron to see if this could be an opportunity for you.
Yeah, we're wide open. We're just getting started with the aggressive franchise nationwide growth, and so the future's all in front of us. Our expectation is to open a Pink Zebra Moving in every market across this country, and so we'd love to talk to any entrepreneurial-minded person out there. You don't have to love moving. You don't have to grow up wanting to own a moving company, but if you love making people happy, and making a little bit of money while you're doing that, then we're the brand for you. We'd love to talk with you.
Awesome, Ron. Well, I really appreciate having you on. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Patrick.